Welcome to the Decentralized News Podcast, where we report on the major events affecting the crypto economy. I'm your host, Piter, joined as always by Ozzy. How you feeling today?
Doing good. I'm doing good. I'm excited.
All right, let's jump right into our educational and entertaining content. As always, this is not financial advice. Please do your own research. We are sitting here on Monday morning. Bitcoin was around 60,000 last time I looked, 6,100. Bloody Monday. I think it's a good day to zoom out. We've really been range bound for 4 or 5 months. We're certainly flirting the pretty big candle and the lower bound of the range, but it's important to remember we really have been in this range for a while. But we're always looking at the news. So it's like, where is this? What are the stories that maybe are affecting this? And we never want to trade on news, but important to follow it. So where's the FUD? There's a lot of FUD about Bitcoin selling coming from both Germany and from the Mt. Gox. You want to kick us off with that, Ozzy?
Yeah, so let's start with Germany because Germany is the actual selling that's going on right now. So Germany, the German government has the fourth largest bag in terms of governments in Bitcoin. They seized it mainly from a movie piracy site that was using Bitcoin to do transactions. And starting early last week on the 20th, they started moving some of that Bitcoin onto exchanges and have sold it. They've right now sold somewhere between 150 million and about 200 million dollars worth of Bitcoin, but they control up to $4 billion worth of Bitcoin, according to some reports. Not a small bag of Bitcoin, and they're just dumping it on the open market right now. When we look at the ETFs, the inflows aren't really strong, so they aren't necessarily absorbing that Bitcoin like we would want. So it's really dependent on retail at the moment.
They're definitely a big enough whale to move the markets. I don't think they're completely exiting their whole position or anything like that, but there is some selling going on with more sales expected, with deposits going into exchanges that are suspected to be from the German government. There was also another big announcement from Mt. Gox in terms of selling pressure. They said today that they will start to distribute assets the first week of July. So this is coming down to it. They said they had till October, and they're doing it in July, so they're actually ahead of schedule. What's going on over there?
Yeah.
And there was on-chain movement in May with 140,000 BTC moved. Now, this is a significant amount of Bitcoin that could really affect the market, but are we really going to see all the selling that people are afraid of right now? Because you had a lot of creditors buying people's Bitcoin holdings, and they're probably hedged, leveraged either way. And then you have the individual investors that didn't sell to these creditors. And are they really going to sell? These are early investors. It remains to be seen, but I'd be surprised it's as bad as people fear.
Yeah, the number out there is there's about $9 billion worth of Bitcoin in Mt. Gox and possible sell pressure. The reality is, if people have been holding this long, and Mt. Gox happened before 2018, I believe. We're talking about
way before. I think we're talking like 2014. But
yeah,
no.
that's it. I thought it was the cycle beforehand, but I didn't want to speak out of turn. But looking at it, they were really early adopters. So this Bitcoin that they're getting back, they probably still believe in Bitcoin. They probably are looking forward. They know the cycle. They're probably looking forward to cycle top. So they will more likely to be holding on to that Bitcoin than to be selling it right now. And so I would be really surprised to see all that 9 billion. And then these creditors, I wouldn't be surprised if some of them have contracts to sell to the ETFs, or maybe we've had a whole bunch of companies add to their treasuries in terms of Bitcoin. So maybe they've got some private contracts to also sell that bulk Bitcoin to some of these companies adding to their treasuries.
You're basically saying like OTC, where it wouldn't affect the market as much?
Yeah, a potential OTC, that would make sense, or even exchanges wanting to replenish their reserves, because if you look at reserve kind of exchange reserves, still dipping. They're not quite too high. They might want to be looking at replenishing their reserves prior to the bull run, because if we think back, Kraken basically ran out of Bitcoin. Coinbase at one point was a bit low. I think Bybit also had that issue, so maybe they are looking to replenish their reserves as well.
There just I did also find one other bit of negative news, but it's FinCEN, the U.S. Treasury's Department of Financial Crimes and Enforcement, sent out an advisory, a warning to U.S. financial firms. So they were warning them about the increasing use of crypto by Mexican drug cartels to purchase chemicals, like base chemicals to produce fentanyl. They specifically cited Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, UST, some other smaller ones. The issuance of the advisory is part of the U.S. government's approach to combating the opioid crisis, which President Biden has deemed a national emergency. So that's why people are a little nervous about it, I think, in terms of the power of the government dealing with a national emergency. But financial institutions were just advised to incorporate procedures for detecting suspicious crypto transactions in their anti-money laundering programs. And they did mention leveraging the blockchain, that this is also an opportunity, a new technology to do that research.
Yeah, so this is like middle of the road news because it's, yes, there could be some FUD if some stories come out, but it's also not the biggest potential FUD story because they're not saying don't stop accepting crypto transactions or anything like that. So, a decent kind of win, middle of the road statement, but worth keeping an eye on, especially when the market's kind of sideways and a bit weak like it is right now, where people are pretty fearful.
Yeah, we're in that summer lull 6 months after the halving period. This kind of downtrend was really set off by the Fed and their hawkish stance. So there are other factors at play. But yeah, it's not all bad news. After our show last week, the SEC announced they're dropping the investigation into Ethereum Studio Consensus. The U.S. Security and Exchange Commission, the indications of this probe came out in March when Forbes reported the agency was investigating 3 unnamed related companies for securities violations. Consensus then sued the SEC 1 month later, alleging overreach. And Consensus, which is a Fort Worth firm which owns MetaMask and API provider Impura, and was founded by Ethereum co-founder Joe Lubin. Part of those filings in the lawsuit indicated that Consensus did in fact receive a Wells notice. Good, positive news. Nice to see. I know there's a lot of expectations about the ETH ETF, and this is definitely a positive story in that regards. I just wanted to mention that Uniswap was also served the Wells notice, and nothing has come of that yet. But we'll be watching to see what happens there as well. Hopefully another good news story.
Yeah, hopefully we don't really hear anything from that and it just dies. That being said, we are hearing some positive news about the ETH ETFs that, just like you mentioned, with the Bloomberg analysts doubling down on their July 2nd spot ETF launch date prediction with a huge surge in S1 filings. The S1 is the registration and statement filings, so that's the last big piece of paperwork before a new ETF would hit the market. And on Friday, we saw a massive surge in amended filings going in to the SEC. So that would be a pretty good sign. Normally they have a flurry of amendments that are just like reacting to the last comments before approval. So we're a week and a bit out from that date, and so that would make quite a bit of sense to see the final S1B filings going in. This is after we've already had the 19B filings approved for the 8 ETFs for ETH last month. We're still waiting on that green light for these S1 filings, but that could come as early as this week, if not early next week, before a potential launch of the spot ETFs. Watch for that, because that could bring some pretty nice buying pressure into the ETH market.
All eyes on the SEC. It reminds me, I believe I saw a tweet where the first, it's unconfirmed, I'd have to dig into it, but about a Solana ETF being filed by a company I had not heard of. Maybe it was just a smaller company, but it just begs the question, what do you think the next chain, what do you think the next ETF will be after ETH?
Solana feels likely because Grayscale had a trust for Solana. They also, I think, have a Polygon trust. I'm not 100% on that, but I do know that they had a Solana trust. That would be the likely next one, but I do think that's a little bit further down the road. If we look at ETH has gone through a few cycles now. Solana's really only had one. This is only its second, and I do feel like there might be.
And I feel like that's the case for most of them. Yeah.
Yeah, the rest of them are no, I don't think are at necessarily a stage of maturity that the SEC might feel obliged to introduce an ETF of them.
My favorite one to speculate on is AVAX, and just because we've been reporting on this for a while, on the SEC in general, but in all the government documents where they mention different tokens, different chains.
Yeah.
AVAX was never mentioned, and out of like the top 20 or whatever, that was one of the biggest ones. So I always had, it's like my dark horse.
Interesting pick. Maybe you're right. Maybe they'll be the ones that have a squeaky clean record and squeak in. But one thing that we're seeing, and this is out of tech in the US, Michael Dell, CEO of Dell, the computer manufacturer and tech company, has about $100 billion market cap. Just to give everybody an idea, it's in the top 50 tech stocks in the US. It's about 4 times the size of MicroStrategy. That being said, he put out a tweet on X early last week asking, what do you think the next big breakthrough in tech would be? And there was quantum computing, AI, blockchain, and space tech. And blockchain won with 38, almost 39% of the vote, with AI coming close behind at 33.7. So that was a pretty interesting kind of thing coming out of Dell and their CEO. Was it just engagement firming, or is that a hint at something from Dell? And it was also followed up by a tweet of him saying to go follow the Mr. Cookie Monster account, which was eating Bitcoin, saying it's very entertaining. Anyways, so
some excitement. It goes in that Bitcoin game theory. We've been reporting on this, different companies. You got DeFi Technologies up in Canada. There was Semler Scientific, California, and then MetaPlanet, which I will give their update. And the positive effect it's had on their stock prices, you know what I mean? So a big company like Dell following this model where they're leveraging Bitcoin and adding it to their corporate treasury, it's a big deal. This would be a big company. This would be a big splash if they did it.
Absolutely. It would be a pretty big splash for Dell and would be a pretty big splash for Bitcoin because everyone knows who Dell is. If you've owned a laptop ever, then you probably have owned a Dell, likely. My work laptop's a Dell. To give you an idea, they're pretty pervasive in the whole industry. And if they were adding Bitcoin, I think that would be pretty interesting for Bitcoin and for them. That being said, we've also got some other kind of more on the rumor side news as well, but Trump is apparently in talks to speak at the Bitcoin Nashville Convention in July. Trump had been in talks apparently with, according to two sources that are familiar with the matter. So that's a big news. Bitcoin Nashville's supposed to be really big this year, and so that would be a pretty big splash from former President Donald Trump and current.
I want to be clear. This is an unconfirmed report out of Axios. They're claiming it. It would be nice to see, Trump confirm it or that he's speaking at it. Confirmation there. That'd be cool.
Yeah, some kind of confirmation, but that's currently an unreport. What is confirmed is that he and current President Joe Biden will be facing off in the first presidential debate on Thursday for the 2024 general election. And we're both wondering a little bit of how big a role will Bitcoin and crypto play on the stage. We'd love to hear everyone's opinions in the comments. I think there's at least one question there. It had, at the very least, there's one question given the stances. But what do you think, Peter?
I would be shocked if there wasn't at least one. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm just curious the interaction, how big it gets, or how big of a story becomes afterwards. Just in terms of putting 4-year cycles on and how far this industry has come. Just seeing how big of a play. It made me wonder, was it even brought up in the last ones? I don't remember if it was.
I feel like it was.
Maybe like in some of the bigger debates where there was a lot of people or something, where maybe some more further out stances come up. I don't remember. I feel like something was brought up, but I couldn't recall. But yeah, I'll definitely be watching because I feel like it's just a whole new ball game in terms of politics. So it'll be interesting to see it play out on the national stage like that.
Absolutely. And that being said, that's our main stories for this week. We don't have a ton of macro. Friday, PCE's coming out. It's supposed to be up a bit, this at least expectation-wise for just PCE year over year. But core PCE is potentially expected to tick down, which would be a good sign. General PCE maybe up a bit, if not flat, and then core PCE expected to drop. That's it for now. A little bit of quiet week with those.
Come on, Jerome. Cut rates already. Let's go. Let's get this party started. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
looking into the speed run, Blast, a controversial chain. I don't know, but they're launching its token and an airdrop coming on June 26th. They got Degen on there. It's like they're big. Didn't they make a splash with like meme tokens and Degen or something?
no, they're yield bearing. They're yield bearing chain. They seemed very degen when they first launched. It felt like it could rug. It hasn't. And they ran a pretty successful airdrop campaign throughout months since
Yeah,
May,
they're like a notch above Pulse Chain in terms of reputation.
at the very least. But they ended up they've now had a lot of FUD with this announcement of their airdrop. This has been a bit of a trend lately with airdrops that most companies have fallen flat, most chains have fallen flat. But Blast is getting a ton of FUD because you might qualify for 100 tokens and rewards, but you will only be able to access 10% of them at the beginning, and the remainder will be locked for a year as long as you maintain funds on Blast. The specific pieces of those
It's like
terms and conditions.
it's like you're being held hostage.
Yeah, exactly. You're being held hostage for at least a year. So those terms, go check out what it is. There's more specifics on their Discord and on their Twitter posts. So go check that out because worth checking out. It's like Layer Zero, 10 cent per token fee that they were charging, which was absolutely ridiculous. One of those things that's just going to tank the token at launch, and it tanked the token in pre-market. We'll see what happens there. That being said, another thing that might apparently tank a token, let's talk about OP.
Yeah, they have 57 million worth of unlocks coming on June 30th. All this goes to core contributors and investors, especially with the market in the state it's in. It seems like an unlock would help it much, but see how they hold up. Mantle still building, kind of one of the newer chains. This is their first cycle, little baby in the space. But Mantle introduced their CM ETH, its new ETH liquid restaking token.
That's interesting. And Trader Joe and Balancer have launched new AMMs and new versions, both of them introducing hook capabilities. And with Balancer, they're enabling greater composability, and Trader Joe with the first implementation of concentrated incentives. Some pretty interesting things coming out of both Trader Joe and Balancer. So
what about, before we go, you got anything on Goon for us? I know we're closely watching potentially the first big meme coin on Polygon. They had
they've had a pretty good week. Last week was not so great, kind of with a pretty strong pullback, but much needed. It got really overheated and no real corrections. So lots of people took profits, and we've now rebounded, finding kind of a nice floor somewhere around 4.3 million right now. So that was a nice rebound after hitting a low of about 1. We're seeing lots of new holders. They've now surpassed 1,100 holders. So that's a really healthy amount coming into the space, and their Telegrams almost hit 500 people. So
yeah, the Telegram and holders have been growing steadily. It's very healthy to see that.
Yeah, and
there really hasn't been a retracement there at all.
No. Prices have been steadily following holder count much better than they were in the first run-up.
And this recovery has happened when the market is absolutely pooping its pants right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just, I won't get into any more of that, but I mean, it's healthy to see it doing well, recovering from a pretty healthy correction in the world that it's trying to live in.
Exactly. And it might be partially to the luck of the fact that I spoke on a QuickSwap Twitter space on Friday talking about Goon. That was attended by about 350 people at peak. So that was pretty awesome to see. And then
I loved it when I was listening to that, and I turned on the space like right when you started talking. I was like, oh man, this thing has been going on for a while. I wonder. I turned on and they're going into the panel, right? And so there's a bunch of you here. We'll have to see if anyone will elbow in, and like immediately it's like, I'll elbow in. Let me elbow in right now.
Yeah, exactly. I was not afraid to help.
As for any Goon holder, they were just like, yeah, get them, you know what I mean? Way to go, dude. Just step up.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then Jesse Eckel also spoke on a Polygon space today that was attended by about 200 people about the potential grant for Goon and what it would be used for. That was pretty awesome with Jesse Eckel and the Polygon team. And
And I saw a post from your friend Andy in the Telegram, something about he's going to a big Bitcoin mining convention. He's, oh, I'm going to be telling everyone I can about it. It's nice to have some friends in the space, some reputable friends in the space.
yeah, and that's just some of the stuff that's going on with Goon. They've got the Goon daily newsletter, weekly newsletter that's gone out and published its second issue. They've got some pretty awesome community organization stuff going on, and so they've also got their new website going live this week. So pretty exciting, and we should be seeing a lot more out of Goon in the coming weeks. And so I'm super excited about that. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Piter, to sign us off.
All right, let's take it home. Have fun watching the debate. Hopefully, we're going to talk about Bitcoin all day. Hit subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Thanks very much for joining us. If you've made it this far, this is not financial advice. Please do your own research. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We'll see you next week. Piter signing off.
Aussie signing off. See you guys next week.